It all started with a sound I hope you never hear in your own life. A gut-wrenching crack sharp as a bone snapping, cutting right through the morning fog. That's how I woke up at 6:47 a.m. on a Tuesday, heart-hammering, pulse racing. Now listen, I didn't reach for a gun. This isn't that kind of story. I reached for my tablet, squinting at the blurry security feed with the dread only a homeowner in suburbia truly knows. And there she was, Carenza Cass Sterling, president of the Pine Ridge Heights HOA, standing in my front yard like she just conquered the place, crowbar in hand, going to town on the wooden shutters of my cabin. Now these weren't just any old shutters, they were cut from reclaimed white oak taken from the Vermont farmhouse where my late wife grew up. That wood had survived 100 New England winters, but apparently it couldn't survive Carenza's crusade for neighborhood aesthetic integrity. She ripped one loose iron nail shrieking and chucked it into a dumpster like it was covered in the plague. Her face a mask of righteous suburban fury, twisted as she screamed about emergency noncompliance, barking at my security camera like the lens itself had broken the HOA rules. And then came the sledgehammer. Down it came on my flagstone walkway. That path. 4 months of my life, every stone hand-picked to match the color of the riverbed where I proposed to my wife. $5,000 in masonry, 3 years worth of grief therapy, all smashed to bits in under 20 minutes. Why? Because my cabin, she said, was an eyesore threatening the visual purity of her little cul-de-sac. But here's the thing about destroying something an engineer built with his bare hands. If you're going to do it, you better make damn sure your own house is in order. Because gravity is a cruel mistress and karma, she drives a garbage truck. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let's wind this tape back. My name's Elias Thorne. I'm 55, retired Army Corps of Engineers. I spent half my life building dams where the water wants to kill you and the sun tries to finish the job. When Martha, my wife of 30 years, died from leukemia, I just couldn't stand the silence of our empty house anymore. I took my pension, bought a few acres at the ragged edge of Pine Ridge Heights, Oregon. Martha hated soulless modern design. She used to say drywall had as much life as a coffin vinyl siding, even worse. So I built her a cabin. Not a prefab box, no sir. A living, breathing timber frame place. Mortise and tenon joints, solar panels, rainwater collection, wildflowers everywhere because that's what Martha loved. My cabin was like a living memory nestled up against a row of gray cookie-cutter houses, the kind you'd expect a robot to 3D print if it was having a bad day. The rest of the neighborhood, 40 houses all the same, painted in grage, that special blend of gray and beige that makes you forget what color even is. But then there was Carenza Cass Sterling. Picture this, a woman whose soul got dry cleaned and pressed sometime in 1995. 60 immaculate, drove a pearl white Mercedes G-Wagon that hadn't seen dirt since it left the dealership. She measured her grass with a ruler. She fined folks for leaving their garage doors open more than 15 minutes. And the way she looked at my cabin, well, you'd think I'd parked a rusted-out RV next to her rose bushes. The war began with a letter. Heavy cream-colored stock Pine Ridge Heights seal embossed at the top. I was cited for structure incompatibility violation 404. My home didn't fit the harmonious modernist vision of the development. I tried the reasonable approach, dug up my plot maps, sent a polite email pointing out that my lot was zoned rural residential before the HOA even existed. I was, as they say, grandfathered in. Her response? Silence. 2 weeks later, a $1,200 fine and a new citation, this time unauthorized flora. Translation: rip out Martha's wildflowers, replace them with her favorite chemical-soaked HOA-approved sod. That's when I realized this wasn't about rules, it was about power. She was marking territory. Her next move, she brought in her architectural enforcement officer, a kid named Tyler. Turns out that was her stepson. Imagine a guy who learned construction from Minecraft, not real life. He rolled up in a rusty sedan wearing a reflective vest straight out of the packaging, measuring my property with a sewing tape. He declared my porch was 18 inches over the line, told me I had to knock down the front of my house or face $200 a day in fines. Instead of laughing in his face, I called Old Man Miller, retired surveyor 3 streets over, still sharp as a tack. He showed up with a limp and a laser total station that cost more than Tyler's car. 30 minutes later, Miller's reading put me 4 feet inside the property line. That kid couldn't measure a coffin if he was lying in it. Miller grunted, toothpick wagging. I sent those survey results to the HOA board in the state. Thought facts would settle things. Nope. Carenza fired back with a cease and desist from her lawyer warning I'd be sued for harassment if I questioned her officials again. Next thing I know, she sends her cousin Greg, calls himself a structural safety inspector. He was actually just an insurance adjuster. Greg spent 9 minutes on my driveway, never even set foot inside, slapped a condemned sticker on my door. Said my home was an imminent fire hazard, insisted I hire, wait for it, an HOA-approved contractor who just happened to be Carenza's brother. Standing there looking at that sticker, I felt something cold and focused click into place. I'd seen worse in the service. If she wanted to play dirty, fine, I'd play cleaner, but I'd play smarter. So I made some calls, not to lawyers, but to the county records office. There's a woman there named Sarah, owes me a favor from an old bridge project. I need everything on Carenza cast sterling permits, tax records, geological surveys, the works. A few days later, while I waited for Sarah to dig Carenza, tried a different tactic: sabotage. Thursday morning, I heard chainsaws. On my cameras, I saw a landscaping crew led by a guy who looked like he'd been kicked out of a biker gang swinging a cherry picker over my solar grid. They weren't trimming trees. They were intentionally dropping branches on my conduit pipes. I didn't run out. I zoomed in and started recording. I caught the foreman Dale telling his crew to make it look like storm damage, called the sheriff's department. By the time deputies showed up, Dale had already severed my main line, sent sparks flying. But I had the footage. Dale cracked immediately, showed the deputies a text from Carenza offering him a $1,000 bonus to take care of the eyesore's power. The crew got cuffed, but Carenza, she played the hacked phone card, claimed she was a victim, slipped right out of trouble again. Like I said, seasoned sociopath. But here's where the twist hits. Carenza, in her frenzy, was too busy fighting me to notice I was about to win the war. Sarah from records called that night, her voice shaky. "Elias, you might want to sit down. What I found on Sterling's place, it's bad." Turns out Carenza's 5,000 square foot palace was built on a foundation of lies: unpermitted Olympic-sized pool, massive deck extension, illegal guest house. But that's not the real bombshell. See, Pine Ridge Heights was built next to the old Blackwood Industrial Landfill, a toxic waste site from the 70s, capped and sealed. The developers were allowed to build here as long as they never dug deeper than 10 feet in certain areas. Guess where Carenza's illegal pool was? Right on top of the cap. By digging for her vanity project, she'd punched straight through, letting decades-old chemicals seep into the soil. I brought in an environmental engineer, Dr. Emily Chan, tough as nails, didn't smile once. She sampled the soil around Carenza's place. Her device screeched. Methane off the charts, benzene and trichloroethylene in the groundwater. The sweet chemical smell, Carenza bragged, was premium fertilizer. It was poison. And not just for her, for all of us. This wasn't about my cabin anymore. It was about families, about kids playing in yards, slowly being poisoned by her arrogance. That night in Old Man Miller's garage, I laid it all out: documents, maps, Dr. Chan's report. 20 neighbors, folks fined for everything from wrong shade of beige to too many bird feeders. When Dr. Chan explained the symptoms, headaches, nausea, weird smells, were probably Carenza's fault, the room turned from annoyed to furious. Janet, my lawyer, said there was a legal precedent. Under state law, anyone breaching a hazardous containment cap is liable for remediation, and the county can seize the property. We didn't sue for damages. We petitioned to designate Carenza's estate as a hazardous waste site, the main cleanup point for the whole district. If you think she took that lying down, think again. She countersued, went on local TV claiming I was waging a vendetta. She stood in her front yard, designer dress, swearing the soil was pristine. But while she performed for the cameras, Dr. Chan's alarms installed around the property started howling. That night, caught on camera, Carenza and her nephew Tyler tried to snip the wires to silence them. Bad move. Tampering with federal environmental monitors is a felony. Next morning, the EPA and FBI showed up. No knocking, just agents pouring through her house, hazmat suits, clipboards, cameras. The video of Carenza getting cuffed in her silk pajamas became a local classic. But here's the real climax. In court, Carenza, out on bail, backed by an army of lawyers, tried to spin it. Said the contamination was pre-existing, not her fault. Then Dr. Chan took the stand. She didn't just bring charts. She brought receipts, showed invoices proving Carenza had been warned by the pool company about the weird, oily sludge. Carenza paid extra to keep it quiet, poured concrete over it, and hoped nobody would notice. Judge Harrison woman didn't mess around, looked over her glasses and just sighed. Ms. Sterling, you weaponized your HOA to silence your neighbors while you endangered their lives. You claim Mr. Thorne's cabin was an eyesore. The court finds your property is a biological weapon. The gavel came down so hard I swear you could feel it in your bones. The ruling Carenza had to pay for the entire cleanup, estimated at $4 million. Her mansion was seized, condemned, and converted into the Pine Ridge Environmental Waste Control Center. Yeah, you heard right, her dream home was turned into the town dump. 2 weeks later, I watched the transformation. A fleet of green garbage trucks rolled in, paving over the poison lawn she'd spent a fortune to maintain. Her kitchen became the break room for sanitation crews, her master suite hazmat storage. Carenza lost everything. Neighbors sued her, draining her accounts. She dodged prison with a plea deal, 2,000 hours of community service. Last I saw her, she was wearing an orange vest, picking trash on the side of I-5. I just kept driving. After all that, Pine Ridge changed. HOA dissolved, replaced by a community board run by Old Man Miller. The only rule now, don't be a jerk. Folks painted their houses wild colors. Martha's wildflowers bloomed thicker than ever, a riot of color against my old timber cabin. And every week the garbage trucks roll into Carenza's old estate. Some say it's an eyesore. Me, I call it poetry. The sound of compactors, the crunch of trash, it's karma sweet as spring rain. On the spot where she smashed my old walkway, I set a new stone. The plaque reads, "Build your foundation on truth or drown in your own waste." So tell me, was it too much? Did Carenza deserve to lose it all? Or is turning a bully's home into a waste dump a step too far even for justice? Drop your thoughts below. Let's see where you stand. And if you ever have an HOA president tell you your house is ugly, check the soil records. You never know what's buried underneath. Hit that like, share your stories in the comments, and remember, keep building, keep dreaming, and stay true. This is Elias signing off.
Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video.